be able to go to my page. So we are live now. So I'm going to go to the page and share it to you guys each individual page. All right. So yep. So we are. All right. So it is shared and shared to you guys each individual. So if it's not appearing on your page, you can go once again to Taylor House Publishing page, or you can go to my page and see the live video. So you did share it up there. So I do want to welcome everybody who's tuning in through Facebook. We have about 2 minutes before we start the radio portion of the show. So if y'all bear with us for that amount of time, we'll be able to get right into the show. I have a very, very esteemed panel, and we're going to be talking about some, very much needed dialogue that is needed in the community. So when y'all come in, y'all greet us. Leave a comment in the section if you do can and will and are available. Please share the video so everybody will be able to interact and participate in this conversation. And in a couple of seconds, I'm going to switch the microphones to the radio station, so you won't be able to hear me exactly until the radio show starts, which now looks like it's going to be about 30 or 40 seconds. So um, y'all just bear with us. Once again, we welcome everybody to another episode of the U-Turn Show. I'm your host, Richard Taylor. I'm going to be introducing my guests in just a few seconds. And right now, I'm going to go ahead and switch those microphones so we can be prepared for the radio portion of the show. So y'all bear with us for about 20 more seconds, if you will.
WDISLP 1069, Winterville, Aden, Grifton, Southside, Greenville, North Carolina. I try to be a better man. Folks just don't understand. Try to do all I can to deal with this addiction in me. Lord, I don't want to change. I can't stay the same. But the things that in my pain, it's trying to express just to kill me.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of the U-Turn Radio Show here on 106.9 FM Awesome Radio in the Greenville, and also 100.3 WLYT in Rocky Mount. It's definitely a pleasure, and we thank God for allowing us to be here another week. Thank you all for joining us, whether you're listening on our radio station or on our social media platforms. And if you have not already been to the website, you feel free to visit www.wbisawesomeradio.org, where you can download all of our apps on the Google Play, the Apple Store, or Alexa. Also, feel free to call in. I'm going to be putting the number on the screen periodically. This is an interactive show, and we are blessed once again to have an esteemed panel of guests. I'm going to give a brief introduction and actually I'll let these brothers introduce themselves. First, I'm going to start at the top of the screen, if y'all can see, with my brother Mike Best. Could you introduce yourself to the audience and tell the people a little bit about yourself?
God bless you. All the radio listeners and those joining the live. My name is Mike Best. I serve in the role as a teaching pastor at the Presence Church in LaGrange, North Carolina. Just husband of 24 years, father of 5 children, 1 son and 4 daughters. Just enjoy and love. Just being able to build and to have an impact on other people's lives through the gospel, and just communicating and just doing whatever we can to try to make some type of progress to kind of help us be who it is that we were born to be. Having the conversations that need to be had, so that we can all kind of grow and help each other. So I'm excited to be on with you guys tonight.
All right, thank you for that introduction. I'm gonna go down to my brother Syene Jasmin. How you doing? Introduce yourself and tell the people a little about yourself, please.
Well, good evening, everybody. My name is Syene. I'm an organizer here in Eastern North Carolina with one organization, Black Voters Matter, but I'm also a member of NOTRA, which is an environmental justice organization based here in Greenville, North Carolina. And I'm also on the board for a statewide organization called the North Carolinians Against Gun Violence Action Forum. So I'm just happy to be here, happy to give my insight. I really love this discussion, and I'm really excited about using this platform to talk about these issues. And it's a pleasure being with all of you guys.
Thank you. It's definitely a pleasure having to you. But last and certainly not least, I'm going to go to my bottom left, Mr. Dougie Ashford. Could you introduce yourself and tell the public about yourself a little bit?
Yes, sir. Glad to be here. Like I said, I'm Minister Dougie Ashford. I serve as the Minister of Outreach at my church, Abundant Grace Church, in Dudley, North Carolina. We started that ministry in June, basically to get back in the community and fill in what's needed in the community. I have a background of juvenile justice over 6 years, from all the way from the YDC on down to the school system where I work at in alternative school, dealing with what society calls troubled youth. So I have a heart for the kids that everybody want to throw away. So I'm glad to be here to add to this discussion on this panel.
Okay, thank you so much. So we have, as the audience, you see, we have 3 diverse guests from different backgrounds, different aspects of society. And this conversation is a continuation from last week. If you are familiar with the Goldsboro, North Carolina area, we had what was called detailed a mass shooting a couple of weeks ago, which sparked these conversations. But not only that incident, there has been, several incidents of violence in our community for a while. So we don't want to look at, just a particular instance in a vacuum, but we want to talk about the overall issue of violence amongst the community, especially the young people in our community. So I'm just going to jump right into the conversation. Once again, we see these things, we see these issues. And I'm gonna, I'm just gonna start off asking, what from your perspective, your points of view, are the root causes, or some of the root causes for these issues. And anybody's feel free to, to speak.
I believe the root cause is that particular issue is, I guess, the lack of things to do for the young people and the consistency of the things that we come up with for the young people. There's many times that we come up with things and they're good, great turnout. And then many times we don't stick with it, which goes into a cycle. Because tragedy is going to happen continuously. But we have to think about what can we do to continue to bring peace or problem solve consistently. So I think the root is boredom, lack of things to do, lack of unity consistently, lack of conversations consistently, lack of caring consistently. I think I guess the root is consistency.
Okay.
You know,
Or the lack thereof.
the lack thereof.
Mm-hmm. And I'm gonna jump in real quick before anybody asks, because you mentioned something that was that you had spoke with um a few of the kids at your school, because you work once again at the alternative school here in Goldsboro, North Carolina, and so um it's easy to say, what we think the problem is, but you actually told me you spoke with a few of the kids from the school concerning the issues of violence. So we're going to start off with that. What was their response, and what kind of insight did you get from the horse's mouth, as they say?
Yeah. So one 8th grade boy said that I asked him, why is there so much what's the root of everything? He said just dissing dead people. He said if they stop dissing dead people, the crime will go down. So basically, I guess for the ones who don't know, dissing dead is basically if one of your friends or family members died, I'll say something like I'm smoking on that person, or they just do something or say something disrespectful to the person that died. So automatically, one or two things have to happen in their mind. You have to get jumped, or you have to get killed. One or two, and that could either be you or your family member. Um, um, he said, a 7th grade year old boy said that it's a lot of stuff going on because nobody want to sit down and talk. Um, Another 8th grade boy said the same thing. The dissing, the dead, going back and forth with different things. The 8th grade girl said that everybody just want to shoot based off of what they see on like music videos and stuff. And all 4 of these people are people that may have been seen in lives, that may have been seen on Goldsboro Police Department's page. All 4 of these people are people who have been shared through social media from like Goldsboro Police Department page, and like these are people these are children who are, like they say, out there. I intentionally asked these students to see what they would say and how they felt regarding it. So I also asked them what's something that would help. So they were saying stuff like if the community could make something where they could box like peacefully, of course, security there and all this stuff. So in my mind, Steve actually popped in my mind. That's something that he's doing, but I guess they're saying if we could do it in a wider variety, for they come together, like a put the gun down type situation, and then go to the boxing ring and box. Another one of them said in an open gym or something where they can go play basketball, pick up basketball, like an arcade or a cookout. They'll be willing to go somewhere like that in a safe place. So another one said that he wants to drop out of school. 8th grader now wants to drop out of school and quit and just do. And he would have robbed somebody because he can't get a job, and he goes to school and he feels stupid because he can't retain the information. So so there's different things, but all 4 of them. One of them said bowling. They would like to go bowling. But all 4 of them said one thing. It's about the sides. So, and this goes back to something that we were dealing with when I was in school. When the oldest person who joins this live that lives in Goldsboro, this been going on since before them, and that's of course the north side versus south side in the Dudley. So you got the east side partnering with the north side, which is beefing with the south side, and you have Dudley and Rollingwood beefing with the south side. Then you have, so there's all this different stuff that's going on, that's been going on way back then, but they're continuing a trend that started, and they don't know how the trend started because we don't know how it started. All we know is you don't go over there, you don't go over there. If you're from here, you don't go there. If you're from here, you don't go there. And so they're living up to this stuff. But now what they have I guess I won't say to their advantage, what they have in their hands, like the 8th grade boy said, they have military grade guns. He said that he know a boy that have an AR with a clip and something else. He said that they can add to it. So I said, do you know what's in the trunk of a police car? Yeah, a shotgun and a machine gun. And then he laughed. He said, but these boys right here got military guns. And then so is we can say so that kind of so I said, you think a gun law will help? He was like, no, because these boys aren't getting the guns from the gun store.
Exactly. Yeah.
So we could ban this gun, that gun, but they're not getting none of these boys are getting the guns from the gun store. And most of these boys are under the age of 18. As a matter of fact, most of the killings and shootings are under the age of 18. So now it's the older generation that I guess are feeling like they're too old to actually be out, or raising up a younger generation to do the dirty work. So in other words, the big homies are raising little homies to go out and do the work. But back in the day, that used to be the big homie have the drugs, little homie sell it. But now it's the big homie have beef, little homie you go deal with it. It's not even, sometimes drugs aren't even involved. It could be a jump in the killing or whatever.
And that's what I think too. That's what I think, these days that's different because, back in, my day or whatever, we wanted to make money, we and my Uncle Ted, if you from Goldsboro, Ted Jordan, I heard him once say, you can't make money and play with guns at the same time, which means you can't make money. You have war, but either way, like the street mentality is also a big problem of that. So I definitely don't want to say that there's a right and a wrong way, to be in the streets. But that's good insight from the mouth of the children, especially you're talking about a young guy who says he wants to drop out of school and rob. That says something to just the basic mentality of the young and the socialization of the young. Mr. Best and Mr. Syene, could y'all weigh in on what you heard from Mr. Ashford or the original question?
You can go.
I'll say the best for last. I'll make sure you go last. So thank you for sharing that, Douglas. Dougie, I'm sorry, because the issue of violence is so complex, and so I started this part of my life as far as researching and really getting deeply involved in the aspect of why gun violence happens so much in our community, probably back in 2018. And I remember right during the pandemic, we started to hear about a lot of the gun violence we hear about now. Like it started to peak, the numbers started to rise. And so to see where it's at now, 5 years later, it's really sad, it's disheartening, and we have to do something. So let me just say that the number one issue is that there's been policy violence that's happened to our community. So that's the first set of violence. The way the majority of our people have got to the shores of the United States is through slavery. It was through political violence. It was through systematic policy violence. So violence from the system is the number one issue. That's what kind of starts everything. And then from there we have a trickle down effect. And so when you look at the current state of North Carolina, I'm just going to use North Carolina as an example. The way our districts are gerrymandered, and if you don't know what gerrymandering is basically a way of manipulating the boundaries, so you can favor one party over the other, or one constituency over another. And so when you don't have fair access to creating policy through electoral maps, that right there is a shot in the foot already. I mean, and when you think about the proximity to a lot of the bad environmental, a lot of the bad industries, like hog industries, for example. I know there's one in Wayne County. That proximity that many Black people have to these things, that plays a role. It plays a role with the water we consume, right? It plays in a role in the way students can go home and think. And so I hate to sound cliche, but the research I've been doing, and in the work I've been doing as an organizer, I realized that the issue is so complex, but it starts with the foundation of us as who we are in this country. And so, with that being said, people may argue the Syene, slavery happened years ago. Gerrymandering has been going on. We've always had problems in problems with accessing voting. There are people who may not even be interested in voting. That has some truth. But I would say this: all these things play a role. So, for example, hip hop back in the 1980s, the golden age, you didn't hear too much about shooting and killing each other. In fact, one day I was on the radio listening to the X Clan, and it just blew my mind that this type of hip hop, this type of music, actually existed. Like this type of music that had positivity, that was uplifting to people who look like me, actually existed. So to see where it's at now, in my opinion, it has to do with policy. It has to do with the growth of prisons all over the United States. Why not invest in why? Because if they really wanted to, when I say they, I'm talking about the powers that be, folks that may have control. If they really wanted to, they could play rappers like Common and Mos Def consistently on the radio. We will eventually adapt. We'll start liking it more. So it's complex. And the last thing I want to say is that we do have to do some soul searching as a people, and to create some sort of infrastructure where there's a code of, okay, this is how we're going to behave towards each other. And I'm not sure that we all on the same code in that regard. I think we need to create that. So I'm gonna stop right there. I'm sure this is gonna be a long conversation.
Yeah. So I definitely agree with pretty much everything that you said. It's funny, and we're coming up on our first break, so I'll let you start after the break. But I was thinking about the same thing this morning when I was thinking about the show. I thought about how America was built on violence, not just towards us, but towards the indigenous people of this land. The Europeans came, or the settlers, or the pilgrims, whatever you want to call them. They came to this land and killed, murdered, raped, and pillaged a whole entire group of people. And it didn't stop there. They set up the system of slavery, and they set up the slave trade. So there was a lot of death, blood, and murder that was sown into the seeds of this country. And as the Bible said, whatsoever a man sows, that shall he reap. And it also, there's a scripture that says, blessed is the country or the nation whose God is the Lord's. And they say we started out as a Christian nation, but right now we can't say that America is a Christian nation concerning its roots and foundation and the laws. But we're going to take our first station break. Y'all stay with us because the conversation is just beginning. 106.9 Awesome Radio, the U-Turn Radio Show.
How many languages? This is Ken Ham, CEO of Answers in Genesis, the Creation Museum, and the Arky Calendar.
Can y'all hear me?
Yes, sir.
Oh yeah, man. Okay, yeah. So that's one of the once again issues I was thinking of in the beginning, and once again also the part about compartmentalization, where that mindset that you live over here, you live over here, so we're enemies, which is because everybody pretty much stays in the same, this is not like New York where you have a lot of boroughs, or this is not like a major big city where you can say somebody's from the other side of town, or but this town is so condensed that it's just amazing to me that somebody can live It only takes 5 minutes to get from one end of Goldsboro to the other. 10 minutes, if you're really on the far end. So that's just baffling to me. And I want to speak to how we got there. How we got to that mindset when we come back. Of course, Mike, you can weigh in on the things that you've already heard. But yeah, man, this is we just kind of getting warmed up with this. And once again, I want to thank everybody who tuned in. Tamala Wiggins, great topic. Couture, Butler, Reed, absolutely. Syene, Melanie, thank you for watching. And good evening, Pamela Johnson. Thank y'all for tuning in. I'm going to switch the microphones back to the radio show because we're about to start back in. But we're going to start back with you, Elder Best, when we come back.
Dr. Gary Chapman is the author of The 5 Love Languages. For more, visit 5lovelanguages.com. This ain't too bad for me to die up in these streets. Oh Lord, can you help me?
And we are back once again, the U-Turn Radio Show here on Awesome Radio 106.9 FM, Greenville, North Carolina. Once again, talking about gun violence and violence against the youth and the Black community. And we're pretty much just discussing, the root cause and the mindset. And Minister Ashford and Brother Syene gave some good points of view. So now we're going to, get the insight of Elder Mike Best. What have you ascertained, or what do you have to impart, to the conversation thus far?
Yeah, I think both of the brothers made some made some great points in what they said. I wanted to speak to a little bit of I guess what they both said. Brother Dougie was bringing up some of the issues I think that the young people had made him aware of, and I couldn't help but think when he talked about them saying the dissing of the dead, and I don't know. I guess if everybody is aware, I think there's a culture that has popularized that particular statement that you made. There's a culture, and particularly in Chicago, it got to a point where they began to popularize the idea of I guess of the dissing of the dead, to where there are younger people that live within a 5-block radius of each other, and because they were from different parts of that particular neighborhood, they were at war with each other, and they literally were killing each other. And some of the notable rappers out of Chicago began to make songs about the ones that were dead. It was a young man, I think that his name was Tuka, and he was murdered back, I think, in 2014 or 15, if I'm not mistaken. And the people that were allegedly responsible for his murder, they made songs about "I'm smoking on Tuka" and things of that nature. Not to go too far into that, but I wanted to kind of give a little bit of context to what he was saying and what the children were saying as far as the distance of the dead. And what's happening is through the popularization of those type of activities and that culture, we begin to adopt, I guess, a mentality. It's almost like it was whenever we were younger, we went to go and see movies like Boys in the Hood and things of that nature. Even us from the East and from the Southeast begin to try to dress like the guys in LA, because there's something about watching something in the visual aspect of it, especially if it's glorified, makes you kind of gravitate to that. But it's in the way you talked about it in proximity. I think the question that we probably should ask us that are here, having a discussion, how do we get to that point, and how are these young people developing this mentality? Because I've always thought, what I've observed is that as a culture, as a society, as a people group, we have begun to embrace, and I think Brother Syene had brought up the fact of when hip hop first became popular, how they were rappers that rapped about positive things and things that were to a degree uplifting. And so we live in a culture now to where we are embracing criminality. We embrace criminality. We embrace the degradation of women. We embrace that, and the people that are at the front of it are celebrated. Not only are they celebrated, they're compensated. And so if you see a younger person see another person being celebrated for rapping and teaching about acts of violence, then the question has to be asked, then what do we do, or is there anything we can do to prevent these young people from looking at what our culture has glorified and not wanting to be a part of it at the same time?
Yeah, and that's a great point, because speaking to that music thing, and I don't know how many people know this, but there was a meeting, like you said, right around that cusp of the 80s and 90s. There was a meeting between record executives and private prison executives, and they said, okay, well, we want you guys to invest in these prisons. The record companies were requested to invest in those prisons. And then, they said that the only way they would invest in those prisons if they could guarantee to keep them 85 to 90% full. And then that's when the prison companies and the record companies got together and said, okay, instead of this positive music, we're going to push this gangster rap lifestyle, which glorifies selling drugs, which glorifies killing. And if you recall, right around the 90s, the early 90s, NWA, Mobb Deep, Snoop Dogg, Jay-Z, all of these rappers came out glorifying a criminal behavior. And once again, with that came Bill Clinton 1992 with the structured sentencing law. So I've done the research as well, Brother Syene. So I know that there were policies, there was collusion, and as some people would go so far as say a conspiracy, that there were those things. So that's definitely something that we have control of now that we know it. Knowing is half the battle, and we can say, okay, well, this music has grown on us. We once again embrace that culture, but now it's time to reject that notion, because if you recall, in that golden age, we were celebrating, the Run DMC, the party rap, the happy rap, the positive Black Power rap, so whatever is put in front of us, we're going to accept it and we're going to gravitate to it. So they were smart enough to know that. And so that's where we have that, that statement, give me the nation's music and I will control their youth. We're going to be right back with our last segment here on 106.9 Awesome Radio.
Partial funding for this program is brought to you by For His Glory Lawn Care. For His Glory Lawn Care is here to serve you with a spirit of excellence. Contact.
Can y'all hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So we definitely on a good pace, actually. I mean, this show is moving real fast. It looks like, but once again, we're gonna continue on. I think because we definitely I definitely got a couple of more questions that I want to ask everybody, and we're just pretty much just basically scratching the surface on everything. But I definitely appreciate you guys' insight. Any particular topics that you guys want to touch on before we get lost?
I think we're moving in a good direction.
Okay, yeah, because I definitely want to piggyback on what you said as well, and y'all can, I guess, comment about the example that I'll share when we get back. But I think and it coincides a little bit with what you said, leaving out about what can we do, if we can do anything. That's the reality of it, and Man, it's so deep because I know even the Bible says that in the last days that men will become fierce, incontinent, haughty, lovers of themselves, disrespecters of parents, all of those things. So is it, are we fighting a losing battle? So
yeah, no, we're not fighting a losing
hold
battle.
on. The show about to start.
Okay.
Some days I feel like I'm starving. You ever feel that way? I'm Lena Abujamra, and this is Today's Single Christian. Who am I kidding? I'm always starving. But some days my hunger pangs feel worse. And I'm not just talking physically. More often than I care to admit, my life feels like seasons of famine. And each time I feel the hunger.
Sometimes the screen up here fools me. So we got. Can y'all hear me?
Yes, sir.
Y'all can. All right. Okay. Yeah. So we got 25 more. Yeah. Stay right there. I'm gonna come back to that question because that's something I even asked my dad. And okay, with that, the Bible says it's gonna be rough. Like, so why are we praying against these things? But I'm let's let me go back.
Stay strong. Visit todaysinglechristian.com.
And we are back, 106.9 Awesome Radio, back with the U-Turn Show with our special guest. We're talking about violence amongst the community. Yeah, we are. Yeah, we will do. So basically, what you were saying, and something spoke to me because once again, the violence in Goldsboro has been a topic, and just to give you an example of a young lady's mother, once again reached out to me, and she saw her daughter on one of the live videos out on the streets, and she reached out to me and she said her daughter was one of the victims of the mass shooting, but she also said her daughter has been outside every day since that happened. The mother said, her daughter, who was 17, she's uncontrollable. The child, doesn't live in the quote unquote projects, but the mother said she's out there every day. She come home when she wants to, and the mother is sick. She says she has a ailment, and she said I don't want to sometimes I don't say nothing because I don't want to argue. I won't want to put her own health at risk. She said I just can't do it. So and that was that's just one situation, and I thought about a lot of the girls, and actually I have a 15-year-old girl daughter. She'll be 15. And I see almost a masculization of the young females now, where they are a little bit more aggressive. In some regards more than the males. And I don't know if you can speak to that as well, Mr. Ashford, since you work with the children. But and that once again goes to the familial aspect. Like once again, where are the fathers? And to be, I think I've never told anybody about this, but my daughter got in a fight probably about the first month of her first year in high school earlier this year. And when I heard the things that she said and did, I said, what? Where are you getting that from? Like, I didn't, that ain't how I taught you how to act. So I instantly, though, because I instantly nipped that in the bud and said, oh no, that's not the behavior that we are going to do. So I nipped that in the bud. But that just goes to the testament of the pressure of peers who, once again, like you mentioned, Elder Best, of something being celebrated and something everybody's doing as cool and as accepted, as opposed to a child knowing right from wrong and knowing they shouldn't do it, but the allure and the pull of what everybody else is doing causes them to do the same. So if y'all could speak on that.
Yeah. I wanted to just before we came back from break, and you were asking the question about are we fighting a losing battle? It's never a losing battle. You only lose if you don't fight. And so I think there are many that have gotten to a point that may feel as if it's a losing battle, and they don't fight at all. But really, what it comes down to in regards to, I think we were talking about the music and it having an effect on children. There probably isn't much that could be done if you paint the whole situation with a broad brush. But as individuals and parents, you can control what you allow in your own home. And I think what has happened down through the years, one of the roots of the problem, and I think maybe some of the other brothers maybe can speak to this as well, is that adults and parents have begun to strive so much and allowed aspects of the culture for them to strive and to push to be successful and to have more, to where they've gotten so busy that the rearing of their children is not at the forefront of their accomplishments. It's different than what it was. Whenever I was younger, I could speak. I think Rick, you and I may be older than the two other brothers, but your parents were always. It was like they were always on post, to where if you and your friends were in your room and you got too quiet, your mom, hey, what y'all doing in there? Y'all too quiet. They would come in, and it was almost like, sometimes do room searches, find out what's in your room, what's going on, what are you doing? I think to a degree, again, as adults and as parents, we have to guard ourselves against getting so busy that we neglect to be watchful over our children, because the parents, the mother and the father, are the child's first teacher. And you are required to have the greatest degree of influence over them, so that whenever they leave your presence, they're not influenced by other things. I know that's pervasive in our community, and we don't always see that happen, but that's the will of the Lord, the way that it's supposed to be. Again, I think there's a lot of things, and I speak on in terms of, and a lot of people may not agree, personal responsibility. Because there are a lot of things that have happened down through the years that, yes, we may be disadvantaged to a certain degree, but I think there's some things that we have control over that we have let slip away. And until we do a self-observation within ourselves and say, okay, maybe there's some things that may be a bigger fight, but what is it that is going on personally within me that I need to hold myself accountable for, so that my children don't suffer for my lack of being there to give them the proper instruction. And that's just one aspect of it. But if anybody else wanted to speak to that, I just wanted to kind of raise that issue as well.
Yeah, either one of you brothers can chime in.
Yeah, I want to touch two things that you mentioned. One thing, like you said, a battle that you don't fight, or a fight that you don't fight, is the one that you're going to lose. Paraphrasing. But I think sometimes we as a community fight the wrong fight. So we're fighting, not saying we shouldn't fight guns, but we should fight the reason why they want a gun. So
Right.
we're trying to do, also Bible also say we wrestle not against flesh and blood. We're fighting the flesh and blood the whole time. There's more stuff that we could be fighting and dealing with and confronting, that sometimes we get wore out trying to fight. For example, sagging pants, when we can fight the mentality that my pants need to sag, or we fight guns when we can fight the mentality that I need to get my get back. So I think that fight will be easier instead of fighting the dropout rate. We could fight why these kids don't feel like they're smart enough to retain information. For example, instead of talking about them and building prisons, because they build prisons based off of the third grade male reading scores. Why not just increase the help that the third graders get, instead of building prisons to predict how many prisons you need based off of the third grader? So that's just one thing. It's just that whole which battle are you going to? use money to build prisons or use money for educational purpose, better books. We have books that I used in school that were old then.
Mm-hmm.
I'm coming up on my 10-year class reunion next month. So it's like that's the books that they're using. I'm sure there have been more editions since then, but so they're not even getting updated information on how to live in 2023 because they're getting 2013 or in before information.
Wow.
So we're fighting them. So we're dealing with we're fighting the wrong battle when the battle that could be fought is a better, there's better stuff to fight. That's basically what I'm saying. And the other point, the females seem to be worse. I can say that we are. I like to brag about my school because we get the kids that get kicked out of their school.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of them are for fighting or drugs, whatever. And let's say we have 100 students, about 50 of them came for fighting, or 50 to 75 came for fighting. Last year we had 6 fights.
Okay.
But we're called the bad school. You know what I'm saying? But out of 6, 5 were female fights. Because females have the mindset of I'm going to go. And it's harder to break up a female because they have, I say like cats, they have a mindset to go, and when they go, they go for everything. They're going to use whatever they can get to use in the fight. And I think that's just how females go. Like the young lady that you mentioned, I didn't know the part about her mother, but she came to school one day. Her first day didn't come for about 2 months. Just started coming back before the tragedy, and then haven't. Of course, she haven't been back since.
Mm-hmm.
But in school, it's a whole different person. So that's something else. So that's, I guess, my ministry would be dealing with them. I guess you can call it a controlled environment. So I can have the conversations, the real talks with them when they're in a controlled environment or when they are somewhere that they have to be. So when I see them in public, I can have that same relationship. So that could go back to fighting that fight. Also, I think I commented on this broadcast last week that our fights could also be to the areas in which. So if they're saying their sides, okay, what side are you from? I'm from the east side. So my fight could be everything. My fight could be the fights that matter in the area of the east side. Maybe you're from Webtown, which is now 800. Then you could fight that fight with the knowledge that you have in that area. So I don't think we're fighting a losing battle. It's just fighting a smart fight and fighting the fight that matters, pretty much.
Okay. And just one quick chime in, because something you said once again that I think is so prevalent and so relevant to the conversation. You mentioned once again that the books that they're reading, that they have your you graduated from those books, and probably about three months ago I was helping my daughter with the book report, and the book report was on The Great Gatsby. Now, mind you, I've been out of school for 30 years, and we had to read that book too. And I hated that book because it was about a degenerate criminal, and he had nothing to show me about myself. Mm-hmm. And so I'm sitting here, and my daughter's struggling with the book too. I don't want to. I was like, I understand, sweetheart, but if you don't, they're going to give you an F, right? So my thing is, like, once again, my daughter is reading the same trash book that I read 30 years ago, that even if I read it then, it did me no good, doesn't do me, is never going to do me any good. So what our children is learning is comparative to not even education, because education comes from the Latin word educare, which means to bring out, which means to bring out their talents and skills. And so what we're seeing, especially with the black youth, because they never learn anything about ourselves, and that's why you got the smartest guys from my classes dropping out at 8th, 9th, 10th grade and going on to other crimes. Just like you said, the 8-year-old. It's not that he can't retain information, but the information that they're feeding him is irrelevant, uninteresting, and not actualizing. So that's one thing that once again, now that's a big fight, this education, because you can't, I mean, I know it was for me, and I see it in a lot of people that this is not helping me. So y'all can chime into that, Brother Saheem, or and hold on, just just one. Couture Butler Reed, and the few books we did have in school, they are banning. That's true too. They're banning. They're burning the knowledge, banning the knowledge of ourselves, and calling that critical race theory or some other thing. So we're forbidding of learning about ourselves, or even about what happened to us, so we can see what type of thing we are up against. But also they're continuously to press the narrative that the greatest scientist was Albert Einstein, the greatest mathematician was the Pythagorean theorem, the greatest man alive was George Washington, who didn't tell a lie. And so all of these people don't look like me. And so subconsciously and inversely, it brings me down as a student, as a person, if I'm not getting those things outside of the school. And I see you holding your head, Mike. And so but I'm gonna go to my brother Syene first because I know he has some input.
I appreciate it. Listen, I'm just glad to listen because I love to learn. So a couple of things. You mentioned school. So I was privileged to go to Cush campus schools from in middle school and in elementary school. I went to a 7-day Adventist school back in New York, and those things, just that education alone, had so many benefits in my life now. And so I was privileged to do that. Not everybody has the opportunity to be taught, whether it's biblical or Afrocentric learning from your own people that gives you confidence, that helps you have the self-esteem needed to go further in society. So I actually didn't go to public school, and there's no shame or no knock on public school. But I didn't actually go to public school until my high school years. And so there's just power in educating. And so I don't know if there's like any like private schools or any kind of summer enrichment programs that's available that can teach people about our history. It'll go a long way. And I know I was speaking to Bobby Jones earlier of the Down East Coal Ash. He wants to put something together for the youth in the area. But I just had a few things I wanted to say. So I am biased because I am a Christian. I do believe, and I say biased because I just believe that with the help of evangelizing, that will help stem some of the crime, some of the shootings, right? I think people need to be like Jehovah's Witnesses, be out consistently. Every church needs to take their turn. Like, we're going to be on here on this day and talk to folks, right? You don't have to have it perfect. Maybe you can go out there and sing. But the idea is to engage with people. People don't have that. And there's only really there's maybe two groups at least here in the United States that are really consistent in that regard. And so I think we need to, if churches can sort of band together and just figure out ways to sort of evangelize in this respective areas. But I also want to talk about, we kind of mentioned like the parents and not being at home and personal responsibility. I can understand some things for sure, and I can certainly empathize. But I do want to say there's some other issues here at play. And when we look at the cost of housing, right? Gentrification. I'm not sure how much of it is in the city of in Wayne County or Goldsboro, but I know how it is here in Pitt County. It's a problem, right? And so what happens sometimes is people are forced to live in certain areas where, and sometimes, and we see a problem with domestic violence as well, rising that as well, where people are forced to live together just to pay the bills. Parents sometimes have to work two or three jobs to be able to afford a $1,400 rent. So I just wanted to say, like, the cost of living, just the pressure kids now have too with social media. Thank God I didn't have social media growing up, because you could hide, right? Like you could be somewhere. Me moving down from New York to North Carolina. The only thing I can remember was that we had like this thing called High Five or something like that. I can't remember what the app was called, but I could hide. I didn't have to be put on this rough exterior. So it's much harder now with social media. So we have to, I think, rely on ways to combat that. Now, if you're not a Christian, whatever infrastructure you have, right? We need people out in the streets. And the last thing I'm going to mention is a lot of times to be out in the streets, you need funding. Well, one of the things that works around the country is this concept called community violence intervention, and certain cities have it.
Community violence intervention.
Mm-hmm.
All right, hold that thought real quick, because we do have to end the radio show. But I want to thank all of our radio listeners for tuning in. Join us next week. We're going to have a very interesting show. 106.9 FM Awesome Radio.
Lord, I need you to smile on me. Lord, I'm pleading. Tell me.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right, okay, go ahead. So you said the violence intervention.
You said community violence intervention.
Right. So there's different forms. There's different CVI type of groups out there. The most popular form is basically when you hire a group of folks to be in one specific neighborhood, and they basically serve as a street team. They can do some mutual aid work, and they basically work to stop violence on the front end before it gets to a point of like, I'm going to shoot this person. And that's a serious skill. It takes a lot of hard work. And what usually in those programs, they rely on credible messengers. These credible messengers are folks that many times were sometimes in that life before. And so they basically get professional training, and they essentially have a legitimate job with benefits, but they're able to work in their community to help stop some of the violence. And I know we hear a lot about the shooting and stuff, but there are a lot of shootings that haven't happened, especially like in Durham, because they have the Bull City United that's operating out there that we don't know about, we don't hear about. And so that doesn't make the news. But anyways, CVI is a form to me of reparations to a certain degree, because we need to have some kind of program to help stop this, right? Because the truth of the matter is, me, you, all four of us, we have regular jobs, we have to work, right? And so we may not have the time, unless we have it like that, to really be out there to try to stop some violence on the front end, right? We don't have time to go to the Goldsboro versus Eastern Wayne game to try to stop a fight potentially. So these guys, these folks that are not just guys, women too, who work in these CVI positions are able to do that work. And so, but it's funding, right? And so there's a movement right now in the city of Goldsboro trying to push towards that. And other cities have different things going on right now as well. Rocky Mount, they're trying to build one in Rocky Mount, but it takes a commitment to funding, right? And so the way you get funding, you have to have folks that agree with you, that are on city council, that are county commissioners. But if the districts that are made up are rigged, or what's the word? If it's rigged, that's a problem. So it goes back to policy again for me. But I just wanted to say those two things.
Yeah. Okay. That's good information, bro.
Community violence intervention.
Yeah, that's good information.
You said there is one in Goldsboro?
So no, so there are folks meeting now, like trying to develop something. There's a process it's going to take. We need that, and we actually need. And I say we. I'm speaking from the North Carolina Citizens Against Gun Violence. We do need allies that be willing to advocate for it. So feel free to inbox me if you have an interest, and I could put you in contact with folks that are working on that.
Yeah, most definitely. Because my fear, I say fear, I can't find the right word for it, but is that a lot of men in suits walk out. You know what I'm saying? It's gonna take the ones that are out, like I'm gonna use a kid term, out there to kind of like, hey, this is representative of so and so, councilman, commissioner. Because I know the kids that's at my school, whenever a guest come, if we don't vouch for them, or even a sub, if they don't, we don't vouch for them, and they're out. They ain't listen. So I think that's of course the middle and high school generation. The adults, of course, are more open. Adults are tired of it. They are looking for help. I guess my concern is, like you said, we don't have time to go and do it. You know, I can't go to school, leave school, then go straight just to the block. You know, but I guess the pull I'm saying is where if I was using me as an example, if I go out, okay, for example, at a certain event I just went to recently, out in public, two groups were about to fight. Just so happened the ones that were going to fight go to my school. I walked up. Like I said, my power is only at school. You know, once we leave at 4 o'clock until 7:30 next morning, I can't do nothing to you. You know, but because I was there, they said you lucky he walked up, and I wasn't even paying the situation any mind until after the fact. But that's the kind of reputation, you know, that we get when we work hands-on actively with different children. We were somewhere a few days ago. The boys were talking, everybody was looking back at them. But it wasn't until Richard looked back that they got quiet and sat down. You know, that's kind of, you know, I guess the introduction that that's why I'm glad that you have the information and that you brought that up. So the ones that know, basically, this conversation can be had with whoever has the funding, and we can say, you know, we suggest this way because of this, you know, because they don't trust. A lot of them don't trust different officials, especially if you say you're a county official. You're fed. You the law, you know. So that's just kind of how it goes. And that's like I said, the mindset, you know, that's been going on since before. Since
I didn't mean to cut you off, bro. Okay, I wanted to kind of circle back because it was something that I thought about for years. Like I told you guys from the outset, I have 5 children, but I wanted, I guess, to pose a question for everybody. Rick, you were making mention when you were talking about the education, and I guess as far as us as Black people not seeing people, I guess, represented in education. But it was a question that I always had to ask, and I asked my own children whenever they would have like the awards banquets and things of that nature at school. Whenever the kids were getting awards for, you know, academic excellence or excelling in their classwork, what I saw, and I have a thought on it, but I just wanted to kind of see what everybody else thought about it. What I saw and I took note of was that primarily most of the ones that were getting straight A's and the ones that were being recognized for their academic achievements oftentimes were those that spoke English as a second language. And so the question came to me is that if, you know, if there's some type of barrier or some kind of roadblock, how is it that people that don't speak English as their original language come in and learn the language and then excel? And so you heard me say before, Rick, what I did is I don't necessarily accept what has been attributed to us as a people group as culture. But I said I want to develop a culture within my own family as as a father and as a husband, I wanted to develop a culture for my children. And so I think that, I guess to a degree, do you guys think culture plays a part in the fact that, people that come from other places that don't speak English as a first language can come in and learn the language and then excel? Is it the case that within their homes there is a culture or expectation that is given to them at a young age, and their requirements that they are expected to meet in order to meet their academic achievement? Because I know it's not a case that they're smarter than anyone else, but could it be that there's a culture of expectations that they do exceed, that maybe aren't being pushed, in other areas?
You're definitely right. I want to attest to there probably is that culture within the home that pushes them once again to excel in the classroom. But I do want to say this because I've researched and studied where they say the first step in education is to teach someone about themselves, then to teach them about others. So that's why you can see someone come from, India or China or, Arabia or wherever they come from, because they've already been taught about themselves. So it's easier for them to learn about somebody else. And I think that's why you get that that excelling, because they know who they are, and so now they can be interested in other cultures. Now that's just one thing I've read about, the educational process. The first step is to teach someone about themselves. But once again, it starts with the home too, because even though I didn't like the the work and the books, and I was expected to go to school and do the work, and learn. And thank God I was gifted where, I could read something and retain information without an issue. So, and that's another thing, the education measurement standards. We have children who may not be good in mathematics, but they're good with their hands. You have children who may not be good in reading, but they can draw something, they can draw you and I just sitting there. So there has to be a specialized or a centralized focus on the particular talents of each kid instead of these standardized measurements of intelligence. So that's just my take, and you other brothers can chime in as well.
And it's amazing how, I don't know, Pastor Best, if you meant for that question to tie in with the topic, but it ties in and it fits perfect. That alone could start violence or could aid in violence. Because for example, when I was younger, we would go to the Chinese restaurant and get food after school, and their kids would be sitting in there doing their homework. And then when you come up to pay for your food, they'll stop doing their homework and come ring you up. So automatically they have a mandate for their education, work, and how to do American systems as far as buying and all everything that we may or may not learn until later on. And then it's like our culture, we celebrate different stuff. So, like, for example, when I was in middle school, I didn't care about AB honor roll. I didn't care about principal's list. I want the most athletic because I was the running back. I want a sports award because that's what's celebrated. That's what we see. I want to be LeBron James. I want to be Ray Lewis. But we don't really know any. Like if you ask a random person, if you go to any school and ask 10 famous black or 10 famous black anything other than an athlete, people might get to 5, especially if you say within the past 10 years. And why, the newest one a child might say is Barack Obama. So I think sometimes we celebrate different, And so that could be something else. So we celebrate sports more than not not everybody, but we celebrate sports more than
as a whole.
and athletics more than education. So if I'm not an athlete and I'm not learning from these 20-year-old books, that leads to low self-esteem. So now we're dealing with who we look at and call them gangsters, but really they have low self-esteem, they're heartbroken, they're put down. So really on the outside they have this tough look, but one-on-one, you talking to them, it's like they're ready, they want to cry because they're broken. They're not smart, they're not the fastest, they can't tackle, they can't shoot, they can't as far as basketball, they can't run. When they go home, their dad can't teach them. Their mom's not there because she has to go to work or go out. Because you'd be surprised at how many 6th and 7th graders we have who have to get out of school and go feed their kids, they feed their siblings because mom either have to work or just won't be back till tomorrow morning. So when they go out on the weekend, they're going to do what they call getting lit or turning up, which leads back to the violence, which lead back to whatever gathering I can get to do what I'm good at. Because I can't, because I'll go to the game, but if I see an op, I'm going to fight because I'm not on the field or the court. I'm not going to the battle of the books. I'm going to the game. I'm not on the field or the court, so I might fight. Because that's what I can do. I can go in, but really I'm broken. But there's nobody to see what's on the inside. Because it's not celebrated. It's not something that's celebrated in a family, a group, a neighborhood, and something else. We was talking about that kind of tied in with it is that it's like we're set up. Like for example, we're set up to be dysfunctional, pretty much. Like let's say, like you said earlier, the lady said she lived in the projects. Well, the projects began just as that, as a project. So everybody know the story that how the project was to see how far, of course, the black family would go without the man, to where you couldn't even live in the projects if the man was there. Matter of fact, when my wife and I first got married, we stayed in a particular project in Goldsboro, where as soon as she was already living there, when I added myself to the lease, everything shot up, and they say we have to get out because there's too many people in the house. There weren't too many people in the house. It was just that it's not designed for a man to be in the project, because the project is to see how to raise or see how long pretty much the female can raise the kids without the man. So that's the project. So with that, automatically we're setting up, but they're setting up, the system's setting up how to come against all of those, what we celebrate as far as education, sports, whatever. Because the father can't be there, because of different stuff that's already set up. So, like for example, the Asians, like I said, in the Chinese restaurant, the dad is on the grill, the mama's bagging, and the children are doing the cash register. You go inside the hair store, the mom might be stocking, the dad might be doing something else, and the child is doing their homework until you come to get ready to check something out.
Mm-hmm.
It was just kind of what's valued, of course, in each home and culture, because it can also be a cultural thing. Where it's sad to say, many times in our culture, if we own a successful business, we're more concerned about what our child look like than compare what we're teaching them. And we could really raise up a good employee or whatever, but we're so focused on getting them the J's and sending them off, and their work and their grades don't match their shoes. or their clothes or their name brand stuff. So they're the freshest kid in school. The parents are the most successful parents in school, but they have the lowest grades in school.
Okay, facts. Just a couple of comments. I guess he was speaking. They have to release the emotions somewhere, and they don't know how to channel and heal without judgment. Um, Almeda Robinson said, I also feel if they are mostly likely raised in two-parent household where mother and father are involved in their child's education and moral values. I think that was the answer to your question, Mike. Uh, my brother Xavier Jones said it's going to take someone who's been outside or in that life to reach these kids. Some of them need that tough love from a father-like figure. And I think that's pretty much the answer to the question. I'll let you chime in too, Syene. But you know that family structure has a lot to do with the success of a child. And so you can go ahead, Syene, chime into that question, that original question. If
No, I actually just want to. I really want to just meditate on all of this. There's a lot that was said, and I really appreciate it. Um, Let me ask you this, Rich. Can we have a part 2 to this one day?
Oh yeah, like this, and like I said, like if well, I mean, I guess you didn't see it last week, or you might have seen it last week, but you know, brother Mike Best was up there last week,
Okay.
and because of just certain situations, I said we got to continue on with this conversation because this is an ongoing conversation, and we need people from different perspectives to provide insight because everybody has something valuable. Whether it's like I think my elder Best his main point from what I gather is it starts in the home. It starts in the morals and values in the home. First of all, it starts with God, living a godly life, but it definitely starts with what you allow your children to do, what you allow at your home. And as I was sitting here, and it's sad to say, but I do think that Mike Best, you and your wife and your family is sort of an anomaly, in our community. Just like my mother and father, and probably was an anomaly for me coming up, and by that I mean it was an outlier. There were a few two-parent household who worked and made sure their kids ate and things like that, but there were a lot of single-parent household or even no-parent household children staying with grandmothers, aunts, cousins, sisters, and it's even more prevalent today. I think they said there was a stat that said 70% of American kids are born in single-parent households. So that's an American problem as well. It's just not a that's a moral problem, as I mentioned earlier. Like this not being a godly nation any longer. That's definitely the root cause. That's why I put familial factors in the in the caption, because children live what they learn, and as far as Syene said, once again, the evangelistic aspect, or like the boots on the ground aspect, like getting out in the community, being visible, attacking those individual needs, and once again, just and from the point of my brother Dougie, that one-on-one contact, like that one-on-one conversation with the children. Like, okay, what are you feeling? Why are you doing this? Why do you feel that way? So there's so many, like this is such a broad topic. So to answer your question, yes, I don't know when this conversation is going to end, because once again, it's already been an hour and 15 minutes, and I don't think we've even just attacked everything that we wanted to attack. So yeah.
I did want to say one more thing, brother Syene. You said something from the outset that I think was very, very important when you were talking about the policies. And Brother Dougie, you just made the when you were just talking, you were speaking in terms of a policy, and there are spirits behind, I think, a lot of these policies, and it's not necessarily a trap for a particular group of individuals. It's a trap for anybody that will fall in the trap. Brother Dougie, I think when you were talking about the issue about your family and the housing project situation, that was the framework of the Great Society Act that President Lyndon Baines Johnson put into play, to where he wanted to take the approach of subsidizing the destruction of the family, or the breaking down of the family, to where there was a guy that I know that had ended up getting incarcerated, and we were trying to kind of help him get back acclimated and help him to get on his feet. And whenever he left, his family ended up having to go into living housing projects, and so we were kind of trying to help them get back on their feet. And he was unable to go to where they were, because if he went back to the home, then either basically he wasn't allowed to be there, or they would take the rent up to an astronomical amount to where they wouldn't be able to. So there are so many things at work, and you said in policies, there's so many things that are at work that are put in place, that if there are people that's not for the benefit of anyone. And if you find yourself in those situations, it does make it difficult to be able to dig out of those situations. And I know the country and the society that we live in, because of its inception, because of its origins, a lot of what took place create what we see right now. But just because there are so many things that are happening around us, and I'm just speaking to us as individuals, because these things are happening around us doesn't mean that we have to fall victim to it. It doesn't mean that our families have to fall victim to it. And that's the same thing that we have to share with other people that are in difficult situations. I had a friend, and I won't say his name, that he didn't have his mother or his father growing up, and he lived with his grandmother. And my dad and my mom, they were together, and they were all, my dad, regardless of where we moved, he was always there and he was always present. And there were some things that he was allowed to do because he didn't have any parental figures to tell him, no, he can't go. So he ran the streets all night long. He did whatever he wanted to do. And we were jealous of that. We wanted to go certain places, and my dad was like, no, you can't go. And we got upset, and we were kind of talking, down about my dad, on the back porch, like, man, he'll never let us do nothing. And here was a young man who was a teenager at the time who said, I wish I had what y'all had. He said, y'all are jealous of the fact that I'm able to go out and run the street. He said, but I wish I had what y'all had. I wish I had somebody that cared enough about me to tell me, no, you can't go hang out on the block. No, you can't go here or there. He said, but I don't have that, and y'all do. So to the point I think somebody made, in us interacting and conversing with with some of these younger people, you'd be surprised at the fact that exterior that they put on is really just a armor to actually keep the environment that they're in from breaking through and seeing, who they really are. But really, they're wanting somebody to reach out to them and give them some love and support. And I think, as you said, Brother Syene, just finding that time and coming up with ideas and plans to evangelize, I think we could make a whole lot more headway if we just put forth the effort.
Definitely, I certainly agree, and I can actually attest to that because once again, I was in that same situation, and now I see it though. Like a lot of the young guys I mentor, they start off kind of hard and tough, but then they such sweethearts and little boys, and so I had one of them. I was at the school reading the other day, and once again, just that one-on-one time with those kids. I read 2 books to 2 kids, and I have lunch with 2 kids. And to see them when they see me come in, or and a couple of weeks ago they had testing, so they told me not to come. And the guy saw, he said, "Where you been at? Where was you at last week?" So I think we underestimate, that okay, well, they're going to be all right. or they're going, they're going to make it. But some of them really need, like I've listened to stories. Like one of the children, I work with, his mother is actually going to jail for 4 months, and he came out and told me. He was like, yeah, my mama, she's going to be in jail. I'm going to have to stay with my aunt. I'm like, but he handled it such a time. But I know it's bothering him, and he's 11, 10, in third or fourth grade, and he has to deal with that. The other young man, he stays with his grandmother, with his other 3 children, and it's just so. I mean, I can run down the list of the students, but looking at these students, I'm thinking, yeah, these kids are great. Don't know what they're going through at that age, and you don't know, that in that little time, like I said, and once again, I know you said it's not a losing battle, but I often wonder that little time, that little 30 minutes, how is that going to combat that entire situation, that they have to go home to?
Yeah. And so that's why I always place so much importance on the home and us doing things according to God's will. Because I guess the part that we have to play is for those of us that have children, to teach our children the same thing, so that it's not a continual cycle. I think what has happened down through the years is that people have made the decision in many instances to go away from morality and go away from the biblical structure. And what we are now seeing is the fallout from that. It's difficult to see, but that's the part of what you were saying, whenever Jesus was telling the disciples all of the things that were going to be happening in the last days. We're witnessing those things now. But again, it's our responsibility to first and foremost to minister to our families and and teach our children righteousness and to make sure that they're doing according to God's will. And after that, then spreading that abroad. But it's just about the gospel. The gospel is able to penetrate the heart of those that will allow it to. I tell this real quick, and I'll be done. I remember I had an opportunity to minister at a prison, and while I was preaching, there was a guy that was in the back, and it was during the wintertime. So of course they couldn't, whenever they had rec, that's when we went to go and minister. So during the wintertime, that's when the services had the larger number of people because they couldn't be outside because it was so cold. And so it had to be at least maybe 100 to 150 inmates there that night. And there was a guy that, when I was ministering, somehow I locked eyes with him, and he was in the back of the room, and he was looking like he wanted to shank me. I mean, the look on his face was just like when it's over with, man, I'm gonna get this dude. I don't know what I said, but I don't know. but he was looking like, man, when it's over with, man. And so, I don't ever claim to be a tough guy, but I've been in situations to where, I've been around people that taught me how to handle myself. And so once you see that unfriendly face in the crowd, don't ever lose sight of where he is. And so after it was all over with,
don't never lose sight. Don't never see that.
and so when it was all said and done, the different ones were coming up and they would greet me after the message. And it dawned on me, where was the guy that was mean mugging me? and when I turned around, he was right here. And I turned around, and so I'm backing up and kind of getting on my, on my back. I didn't know what I was gonna have to do, And so he looked at me, and I'm just saying, speaking to the power of the gospel, so that we have to share it. And he looked at me, and I looked at him, and I said, "How you doing, brother?" He didn't say anything. He still had that same look on his face, and all of a sudden, he just began to melt. He fell on me, man, and he wept like a baby. And I mean, you in the prison, that's you don't cry in front of the other inmates. I mean, they see that, it's like, oh man, when we get back, man right here, soft, he cried, he's crying. But he fell on me, he cried, and he said, I had people telling me the same thing that you ministered tonight, but I would not listen. And now I'm where I am right now. And he said, man, can you just pray for me? And so I said all that to say this. we have to at least make an attempt, because we never know whose heart God is dealing with. And that's the thing. We have to pray and ask God to make us prepared for that moment, for whenever we cross somebody's path, to be able to share the gospel with them, because you never know who you're going to run into. You could run into the one that actually is controlling the hood and win him to Christ. Now he has influence over the entire neighborhood and gives you access to the other ones that are listening to him, listen to you because he vouches for you. So sharing the gospel is going to be the ultimate solution. That's what I always say, because it encapsulates most of the problems that we face. If there's not a rejection of the gospel, or in some way the Bible gives us everything that we need to know in order to operate in this life. Now life is going to be hard. It is for everybody, but life is hard, but it's simple. Follow after God and keep his commandments. And even if you have difficult times in this life and the life to come, you'll be able to see Jesus in peace.
Man, incredible. And guys, we are reaching the hour and 30-minute mark, so I'm not going to hold you guys, too long. Plus, I do have the hour ride back to Goldsboro, but I'm going to give y'all some space for a last comment for the audience. Anything that you feel needed to be shared that hasn't been shared, because we definitely going to be continue this comment. So you guys have the floor to share anything else before we close out.
Well, other Mike, that touched me. Just that story. I really appreciate it. So, Rich, I didn't know what to expect. Really, I knew it was going to be a conversation. I didn't know if it was going to just be me. I thought it was going to just be me. So I'm like, yeah, it's going to be me.
Oh, my fault. I got you. We'll get it.
No, I love it. I love the fact that it wasn't just me. And I love learning. So, really appreciative. I'm going to take this and really go to the drawing board, because this is something I care about. I want to see our young people stop hurting and killing each other. And not just young people, everyone. Right now is just there's something out there. I keep up with the news in Baltimore, in Philadelphia, New York, Chicago, any major city. I'm a YouTube geek, and I get the alerts. I keep up with it. I have all the apps, and so it hurts me when I hear about what happened in Dadeville, Alabama. It hurts me when I hear about Joanna in Goldsboro, North Carolina. It hurts me when I hear about the kids in Durham. So I'm willing to do whatever it takes to help. So I look forward to these conversations, and most importantly, putting my boots down. Thanks once again.
Thank you for joining us, my brother. Mr. Ashford, could you leave us with something, anything that you have to share that hasn't been said, or you want to leave with the audience?
Yes, sir. First I want to say thank you for this opportunity to come on. I do want to say that, like, of course, we spoke about boots to the ground is important. And of course, even Jesus, when he went to speak to a certain group that was, I guess, different, he met them in a way where they could relate. So and I say we, my ministry, we have stuff planned for the summer. I was talking to the kids, so we do have things planned that will be mixed up with which will have evangelism as well. So, like, for example, they said open gym. We're going to rent out certain places and be able to have like open gym, but we're going to evangelize and speak to them while they're there. Another one, bowling. We have that date set. We're going to sponsor for they can get in free, so they can come in, bowl, free food and stuff. And at that time, we're going to, before we start, we're going to have a small word. And while they're bowling, we'll have certain ones. I actually want to invite you to come and, as they're bowling or waiting for their turn, minister and meet them where they're at that moment. The skating rink, at that time, we're going to do the same thing, just have so different things where it's the stuff they want to do anyway. It's just controlling how they do it. and putting God in what they do. So it's like, so skatering is something they do anyway. Bowling is something they do anyway. Ball and play pickup basketball and all that stuff is stuff they do anyway. Cookouts is things they have anyway. Just putting God into it and adding the evangel part to it. So also with Apostle Jimmy Frederick here in Goldsboro, God gave him a vision of cover the city. So he trusted me with District 4, which is of course where most of everything is happening at District 4, Slocum Street, John Street. So we will be starting that back up in June. We've been doing it for a year. So I like to encourage any prayer warrior, intercessor, pastor that wants to, join that, to contact me or Apostle Jimmy Frederick, and whatever district you're in Goldsboro or Wayne County. We have all 6 districts of Goldsboro, Mount Olive, and Pikeville covered. We're asking to, we're trying to build this up, and he's also in Sampson County. So I sent a lot of posts saying that now's the time to cover the city. We've been covering it for a year and a half now. We're just trying to grow, that initiative and getting that going. So every other Monday, I know District 4, I'm on Slocum Street praying. So it's just different stuff. Like I said, doing stuff that's already natural, I guess, to the average person, to these teens, to these families, these communities, and adding God into what they would do. So it's not compromising, saying I'm gonna go. It's just if you want to box, okay, let's get up with Steve Ashford, who already has a boxing gym. Let's get up with him and see how he can do this stuff and add God to it. So that's kind of where we're going for this summer. Also classes. The main topics we're dealing with right now, we have planned is mental health, budgeting, and just grief. So those are 3 that we're having. This is stuff, like I said, consistency that we are going to start in June and keep going. That's something I asked my students. I said, what's something that we can do that won't just be like a one-time thing? Like, oh, we had this, it was fun, but something we can keep doing. So when 2027 gets here, we're still doing it. When 2030 gets here, we're still doing it. When 2045 get here, we're still doing it. That's the kind of thing we're trying to go about. So just stay on the lookout for information on that. We're doing that. We're also, if anybody needs help pushing whatever they're doing, please reach out to me. Let me know, and we'll be glad to help. Anything to help the cause, so God can get glorified and the community can be impacted in a positive way.
Man, that is a lot. That's a lot that you got going on, but it's definitely needed. And I do want to say, anytime that you need my help, you got my number directly, especially on those Mondays, every other Mondays. If you're in the area, I'm down to get out there with you. Mondays is one of my my freer days. So especially if you need some help, you need some whatever you need on in any of those initiatives. If you feel like I can be of assistance, please let me know, bro. And I appreciate you, for everything that you've done, because like you said, you've been doing it for a while. And to everybody, I know this is it's a thankless job sometimes. It's not a glamorous job, really getting down and getting dirty. But I've seen all 3 of y'all, in action and being dedicated. So once again, I definitely want to thank y'all. And last but certainly not least, Mr. Best, I'll let you close us out with any information, any words of exhortation.
I just want to say thank you, Rick, my friend and my brother, man. I really appreciate you allowing me to come on again tonight. It was a pleasure just discussing with both of the brothers tonight, Brother Dougie, Brother Syene, man. Definitely a pleasure meeting you, man. And I want to connect with both of you. Brother Dougie, you're right here in the city. So I definitely want to partner with you guys and whatever it is that you're doing to try to get out there and help. So I'll be reaching out to both of you. Apostle Frederick is a good friend of mine. Great man of God. Has a heart for God's people, and I know he's sincere in everything that he's doing. So, I'm getting to a point to where now I'll be able to kind of do more and have more time to do more. So I'm excited. So both of you guys, y'all be hearing from me probably later on tonight. I'm gonna send you guys some friend requests. But Brother Syene, I definitely want to get with you, man. You got some vital information, man, that I think will be beneficial for people that want to take some steps forward. So I really appreciate the conversation, man, and I'm glad that I was able to meet all of you. Thank you again, Rick. Look, let's just keep doing what God has called us to do. And allow him to use us to make an impact.
Yeah, and once again, I want to thank all of you, brothers. If y'all want, when we end the call, we can stay on behind the scenes. Y'all can exchange information. But there's one more thing that I did want to say, and it's actually kind of encouraging, considering the topic today. We didn't get on the topic of this culture of silence. When we witness calamity, we didn't get on that. But yeah, and that's a whole, I
ain't a part of that culture. I'm gonna tell it. If I see I'm a law-abiding citizen. I'm telling it.
Yeah, look. So, but one thing was very encouraging because I received a call from a lady. Actually, it was yesterday. And it was her brother, Mr. Jamal Pearsall. I don't know if y'all know about that. That happened in Mount Olive. He got killed, I think it was about a month ago. And actually his birthday was today. So you definitely want to send his family my condolences and rest in peace. And that murder had went unsolved. But the lady reached out to me Monday. We talked, and she told me some details, and we talked, and we was trying to figure out what to do. I said, make sure you call that police station, like, because she mentioned how the police were kind of uninterested, and of course they I have to give them somewhat of a pass because if they're not there, they don't know who did it, and if nobody comes forward, then they're kind of pulling at straws and grasping at straws. So we talked all day, well, not all day. We talked about an hour, and she just went on and on. So then yesterday she called me. She was like, "Well, did you go to the police station?" I was like, "Nah, why you ask?" Because I said I was going to call up there too to the. I said, "Nah, why you ask?" She said, "Well, my mother just got a call, and they said that somebody is down at the police station and they want to talk to her." And I was like, "Well, why would whoever want to talk to her? Like they should be wanting to talk to the police." Nevertheless, later on that day, the lady called me and said, "Well, an eyewitness had stepped forward and identified the person who was responsible for her brother's death." And I think as of today, that person that was responsible for the murder of Jamal Pearsall is in custody and charged with that that murder. And that's one thing that kind of encouraged me because though people who commit these crimes, they really need to be off the streets. They really need to pay for what they've done if it wasn't done in self-defense or anything of that manner. But I think that's something that that was encouraging for me to see that and to see someone step up to the plate and do the right thing. So I just wanted to leave us with that because evidently there are some people who don't want this type of things to continue unabated, so I definitely want to congratulate that person. I don't know who they are, but I definitely want to once again encourage anyone, if you see something that's detrimental to the community, have the courage to step forward and bring bring justice to the people who need it. So once again, we just want to thank God for these brothers. I want to thank the listening audience, everybody who commented. There's too many names to name, but I thank you all for joining in, adding to the conversation, sharing the video, just giving us, your attention on this night. If you guys want to reach out to any of these brothers and concerning any help or assistance or any guidance you may offer, I don't think they would be opposed to it. So all of them are on Facebook and social media as well, and they will be able to be contacted. But I want to thank you guys. We thank God for another great show, and we will close out in a word of prayer, if y'all will. Father, we just thank you for this time of communion, for this time of conversation, for this time of discussion, this time, oh Father, Lord, to come before you, oh Father, Lord, with good and pure hearts, allowing you, oh Father, Lord, to speak to our hearts, speak to the issues at hand, and allow, oh Father, Lord, your Holy Spirit, oh Father, Lord, to rest, rule, and abide in our hearts. We pray that this conversation has been uplifting, informative, and also encouraging, inspiring, oh Father, Lord, for others to change the behaviors, oh Father, Lord, or for others to get involved and do as Jesus did, which will serve, oh Father, Lord. And we just thank you, Lord, for each and every guest. We thank you, Lord, for each and every listening ear. We pray, oh Father, Lord, for continuous safety, for continuous peace, for continuous unity, for continuous righteousness over not only the Goldsboro community, but this nation as a whole. And we rebuke, bind, and outcast that spirit of violence, that spirit of perverseness, which allows, oh Father, Lord, that evil to prevail in this society. We pray your peace over this nation, over our homes, and over our hearts. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Amen. Okay, we're going to see y'all next week. We might have the same brothers. We might have the same conversation. That remains to be seen. But I thank you guys for tuning in. God bless y'all, and y'all have a good night.